It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Fire Friday, and it's a very good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to ZiFM Sport, the place where we get the party started. The weekend is always about entertainment, and we go big as we preview the big matchups, the big sporting events that you can look forward to this coming weekend. And to do that for you, Barry Menandi, Chris Gray, our producer Sean Tafirinika, and my name is Mike Madoda. On the home front, ZIFA have allocated over $1 million in the COVID-19 relief package for the resumption of football, which had been hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic this year. We have some international sports news where the Auckland Blues have named arguably the strongest team for the top of the table Super Rugby Aotearoa clash against the Canterbury Crusaders in Christchurch tomorrow.
We take you around the world in 60, starting off in the United States, where Tiger Woods has confirmed he will make his return to PGA Tour action next week at the Memorial Tournament. In England, Jason Holder says England's record test wicket taker James Anderson was the inspiration for him to add a more patient approach to his bowling armory. And in Austria, ahead of the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend, Lewis Hamilton says he's focused on both winning the World Championship and fighting racism this year.
We'll take in our play of the day, then we'll dive into the beautiful game where the Premier League have sensationally admitted that 3 VAR calls made last night were incorrect, casting further doubt over the effectiveness of the controversial technology. The Juventus boss, Maurizio Sarri, did not feel like brooding over this week's embarrassing meltdown at AC Milan, but tried instead to quickly switch the squad's focus on tomorrow's tough Serie A match against high-flying and free-scoring Atalanta in Spain. Real Madrid host Alaves tonight, looking to make it 8 La Liga wins on the spin and take one step closer to a 34th Spanish title. All of that and so much more to look forward to in this edition of ZiFM Sport. But first, our power play, and we start your weekend the way that it ought to be begun, with Buju Banton. It's featuring Pharrell Williams. It's called Cherry Pie. Now I feel hungry.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Don't forget you can follow and interact with us on social media, Twitter and Facebook, the handle at ZiFM Sport. Alternatively, if you wish to follow us in no individual capacities, simply search for Christine Midzi, Barry Menandi, Sean Tafirinika, Alois Bunjira. He uses Gazaman14, Mark Pozo, or myself, Mike Madonna. Let's get into the stories. ZIFA have allocated $110,500,000 to their COVID-19 relief package for the resumption of football, which had been hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic this year. This amount translates to $1.6 million using the latest official Forex auction rate. The money is part of the US $1.8 million the association received from FIFA and CAF to assist clubs survive the adverse effects of the coronavirus pandemic. The Premier Soccer League got the biggest chunk after it was allocated $390,000. But from that amount, the 18 clubs will share $98,784. This means that each club will get around $5,000 directly into their coffers. So the questions we were asking Barry about a week or two ago about what is ZIFA doing with the money that they've been given by FIFA, which is meant for relief and, of course, to help the game here in Zimbabwe. They've come up with the numbers. Are the numbers satisfactory?
Well, that they've come up with numbers, I think, is good. Let's compliment that. Let's not be completely negative. I do have a bit of a struggle in terms of the amounts that have been declared right from the top number, because we heard that FIFA had sent through 500,000, I think it was initially. And then they sent through a 750, but then we got 200,000 from CAF, and then they sent a further 1.5 million, saying that 500,000 need to go directly to women. Ultimately, ZIFA received about 2.250 or 2.5 million US dollars. Hearing a number of 1.8 is a little bit concerning. Not sure where the rest went, but let's put that to one side. Then we start looking at the breakdown in itself. 1.7 million allocated for it. Obviously, they've accounted for testing and all sorts, so that covers possibly the Premier League alone. I'm not sure what they're planning to do with their own divisions, because the Premier Soccer League has a life of its own, but the ZIFA division started Division 1, Division 2. I'm not sure if they've made any consideration for that. Now, women's football hopefully is covered as well. So we say, no, thanks for the numbers. We just need a little more detail.
Well, ZIFA have made a resolution to shoulder the costs of the COVID-19 testing for all the clubs that are, of course, in the top flight of our domestic league. The test kits cost $65 each, and the costs for a club with 30 players and 10 officials translates roughly to $2,600 per session every week. So that is the cost of testing one club per week. Multiply that, of course, by the 18 clubs that we have in the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, and it's a huge chunk of change. Now, women's football, Chris, is also catered for. FIFA were very specific about the amount that they were sending as relief to the women's game, $500,000. It'll be interesting to see how this money is used, because this is an amount that we understand has always been due to the association year after year after year. But this is the first time we've heard it discussed in the public domain, and it'll be interesting to see how it's used and who gets what, and how this money is going to impact the women's game, which has been lagging behind insofar as investment and sponsorship is concerned in the country.
Definitely. If this investment is made, I think it's without a doubt an incredible injection into the women's game, and something that's absolutely necessary to get the women's game to a level where it's an actual competitive, professional competition. And that's what we'd like to see in Zimbabwean football. The issue that I see here is that possibly because of the lack of structures around women's football, there could be a situation where we could see this money reallocated to different things that, for example, football needs to kick on. We've known for a very long time that when it comes to women's football, there's reallocation of funds, there's not enough funds. And the thing is, this money comes from FIFA. Year after year after year, this funding comes. This year, we'd like to see, in a scenario where there is a desperate need for it, we'd like to see ZIFA actually allocating these funds to the women's game properly, and we'd like to see accountability. And in this scenario where we know exactly how much money has been contributed, I think it falls upon your watchdogs like your journalists to actually point out, look, has this money been allocated where it's supposed to go in order to elevate the women's game? We can't keep talking year after year about the fact that there's no money, we don't have proper professional leagues. This needs to kick on now, and if this is the much needed injection, it needs to go into the women's game.
Barry, does it concern you that the fourth estate, the media, who are supposed to hold the game to account, who are supposed to keep our officials or administrators accountable, haven't exactly been talking much about the money that's been coming in from FIFA, and yet we see some vibrant discourse in other nations around this funding that's come in from FIFA, and that's due to football from the mother associations. We spoke about countries like Malawi, about Kenya, South Africa, Botswana, Zambia. The discourse has been very vibrant. It's been exhaustive, the consultation process. We're not seeing anything similar here in Zimbabwe, and the media, barring one or two voices, to be honest, have been largely quiet.
Yeah, it's concerning how we've been quiet. We haven't really held the powers that be to account especially as pertains to these funds. So it's important that I think now, as Chris points out, that we begin to make sure that we are holding them to account and trying to track and trace exactly what is going on with these amounts. Like for instance, for the same media that reported that an initial amount had come from FIFA of, I can't remember whether it's 500,000 or 750, let's call it 500,000. And then for the same media to report that the ZIFA received 1.8, when the sums don't compute, it becomes a little bit concerning. And it makes me think to myself that, are we actually considering what we're saying and what we're reporting, or are we just receiving and putting it into print? So we've got to do a lot better as a media fraternity, so that we ensure that our game is enriched through the discourse that we conduct. And you're quite right. In other countries, it absolutely has been enriched as a result of that discourse.
And the one voice that certainly can enrich the discourse around football and the funding in particular is of you, the listener. Get in touch with us on our social media handles. Let's continue this conversation even off the show. What are your ideas around the COVID-19 relief? What are sort of the areas that should be invested in by ZIFA as far as the game is concerned? The women are talking about $500,000 that's due to them. This money usually comes in year after year, but we haven't heard much about it. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts around that? There's been always a lack of accountability at 53 Livingston Avenue, and that's a situation that needs to change. Now, we're pleased, of course, to be joined by Alois Bunjira, former Warriors striker, former Caps United hitman. Alois, good to have you on the show. And Alois, money is coming in from FIFA. It's coming in from ZIFA. It's for the good of the game. But we're hearing largely that the money will be invested primarily with the Casolaga Premier Soccer League teams. Now, you run an academy, one of the many academies in the city and around the country. Have you heard any communication coming through from ZIFA? Is there any sort of investment that you think should be made at grassroots level where we're actually supposed to be producing players?
Yeah, Mike, we have heard the story about the money coming in now from FIFA, the relief fund that they're calling it. But some are saying that it's just in advance. You know, it's a grant that was given to ZIFA in advance. It's not really for clubs to get relief. You know, but that's what the others have converted it. They've converted it into that, and we've seen other nations. They have also given their clubs relief funding and all that. But for as far as academies are concerned, I don't think we are going to receive any. I don't think any academy, any grassroots is going to receive any, because that has been the norm in Zimbabwean football. Nothing has been going down to grassroots at all. They have just been doing it at ZIFA level, at senior level. You think about the senior national team and the under 20, and that's it. And there's no development that is going on as far as
Alois, so can I just come in? Can I just come in and ask you this, Alois? Do you feel that you are sometimes let down as academies because all of the investment is being done at the top, and yet a lot of academy owners or those that run academies are actually funding them out of pockets? You know, a lot of the guys, Aces Academy, yourself at Alban Academy and other academies around the country. You've got Tularibia and friends out in Bulawayo as well, who's playing a huge role in producing young and upcoming talent. A lot of those people are doing it out of pocket. They're having to invest their own personal funds into producing footballers. And yet ZIFA, when they receive payments of this nature, are not chipping in to also help those academy owners, because football has been affected at all sorts of levels. It's not just the Casolaga Premier Soccer League, but also at grassroots level, where the football has been affected by the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, of course, Mike, you're very right about it, because that's where it starts. It starts from development, and like you mentioned, all those guys, they're doing it from the bottom of their hearts. They're doing it from their own pockets. And ZIFA has not even raised a finger. I don't even remember. Not even a one soccer ball, not even one T-shirt for any academy. But guess what, Mike? ZIFA pumps in money into member countries, and the big chunk of it is supposed to be going to development. That's exactly where, excuse me, that's exactly where this money is supposed to be going. There is money for women, there is money for development, there is money for a whole lot of projects that need to be done. But we don't see any of a project that is being done. We don't see any money going to development. And it's actually written development fund. It's money for development. And it's supposed to be channeled there. Maybe they can actually do a developmental project. There's nothing that has been going down there, but they know that there are guys that are using their own money to develop players, but they are not helping at all, not even with the soccer ball, like I said. It's very disheartening. And when it comes to this kind of money, you would think that maybe they will also help out with those guys that are down there. But I'm telling you now, I know the system, I've seen it, nothing is forthcoming.
Okay, great discussion we're having here around funding in the local game. Like I said before, let's continue the conversation on Twitter at ZiFM Sport. We're going to give you a local sports news roundup, and then in our international sports news feature, we'll build up to the great rugby match that's in store in Christchurch tomorrow. It's a table toppers clash as the Canterbury Crusaders take on the Auckland Blues.
Hi, my name's Ryan Cairns, Sunshine Tour professional golfer, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Our local sports news roundup starts with golf, where Zimbabwe Golf Association has engaged former Sports and Recreation Commission Communications Manager Tiriracha Nereyemba as the new administrative assistant. Zimbabwe Golf Association President Mufaro Chiwoniwoni said the appointment is part of the Zimbabwe Golf Association's drive to improve efficiency and delivery of the sport of golf. The Zimbabwe Golf Association, which the sport's mother body and in charge of all golfing matters in the country, has come under fire from its members associations for not doing enough during the COVID-19 induced lockdown. On to football news, and the Zishawane Town Council has pleaded for a government bailout to expedite renovations at Mandawa Stadium to meet Confederation of African Football CAF requirements. Speaking during a tour of the stadium by the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Youth, Sports, Arts and Recreation, Zishawane Town Council Director, Housing and Community Needs, Nhlanhla Ngwenya, appealed for government assistance to complete the stadium renovations. We wrap it up with news that the Sports and Recreation Commission has granted Bulawayo's Body Works gyms permission to reopen under strict COVID-19 guidelines. Gyms and fitness studios were among businesses forced to close their doors when the COVID-19 pandemic struck Zimbabwe. Bodyworks Gyms manager Donovan Ashbourne said their two facilities will open on Monday next week and will only accommodate 30 people per hour.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z. From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
Now, the Auckland Blues named arguably their strongest team for the top of the table Super Rugby Aotearoa clash against the Canterbury Crusaders in Christchurch tomorrow. The pack is unchanged from the side that beat the Highlanders before the break, with two changes in the backline. A scrum half, Finlay Christie, and inside centre, Harry Plummer, will start after coming off the bench in their previous three Super Rugby Aotearoa games. There are 16 players in the travelling party that have played in all four Super Rugby Aotearoa matches, with the bench further strengthened with the return of All Black Carl Tuina Kuafe and Blake Gibson, both recovered from injuries. It is a top-of-the-table clash. Michael, you're resplendent in your away Crusaders jersey, so we know where your allegiances lie. So try and put your pundit's hat on and give us your assessment of this game.
It's going to be a good game of rugby, Barry. The two top sides in Super Rugby Aotearoa, the defending champions, the Crusaders, taking on the team that previously dominated the competition at the onset, the Auckland Blues. They've come along in leaps and bounds over the last 6 months. You know, quality they've got at fullback. Gordon Barrett, one of the best All Blacks that we've seen in recent years. Rico Ioane has been moved from the wing to midfield, and he's looking to stake a claim for that All Black jumper in that position. But I'm particularly excited by their number 8, their 8th man, the man who plays at the base of the scrum, Hoskins Sotutu. We talked about the quality in New Zealand, and he's going to be adding to the numbers in that All Black setup because he's a quality operator, very good with ball in hand, very strong. He's good defensively and offensively as well, where he makes a contribution. So that is the area, Barry, that combination of Doughton Papali as well as Hoskins Sotutu and Akira Ioane, where I feel that at the breakdown, the Blues will be able to challenge the Crusaders, because if you take a look at the men that they will be up against in those positions, you're taking a look at Wetu Douglas, Tom Christie and Tom Sanders. Those are not All Blacks. So that is the area where the Canterbury Crusaders have got the least experience. And so that's an area which the Auckland Blues can target, because they've got players who have been in and around Super Rugby for a lot longer, as well as, of course, the prodigious talents of Hoskins Sotutu, who I think for me is the breakthrough player of the year. I'm also interested to see, Barry, Patrick Tuipulotu at number 4 as well, how he's going to match up with Sam Whitelock at the line out, because he's pushing Tuipulotu for a place in the starting lineup, and I think the man that he can dislodge is probably Sam Whitelock, because Brodie Retallick is arguably the best player in world rugby, and he's definitely the standout lock in world rugby. So his place, I think, is assured. But if there's a man that he can compete with, it's Sam Whitelock, because they both wear the number 4 jumper.
Is that where the difference is, Chris? We noticed that Mike didn't talk about ball in hand at all, because both teams have got ability in that light. Instead, focused on what might be the marginal differences that separate these teams, and that's possibly at the set pieces and the breakdown.
I definitely think that's where the difference will be. And if you take a look at the changes that both sides have made in terms of their starting lineup, they're well aware of the fact that this is where the game will be played. The points will be won from those particular set pieces, and that's why they've made those particular adjustments, and it's going to be a really good game of rugby.
A good game of rugby in the offing, and Crusaders coach Scott Robertson has made few changes to his squad. Robertson told New Zealand's Stuff website that it was a tough decision to bench Jordan, who had scored braces in wins over the Chiefs and Highlanders.
Yeah, look, it's obviously a hard decision to start with, in red hot form, but when you've got 2 All Black wings and your vice captain, who was probably part of the Super Rugby before he, that's Dave Havili, before he got COVID and got sick, it was spent a lot of time on the decision making, who would start. But the young fella is going to bring a lot off the bench. We'll start all 4 if we could, there's no doubt with his ability to perform, but the other guys are really experienced and deserve the opportunity to wear the jersey. Look, he's just explosive, isn't he? And he's got great timing and anticipation, and can beat a man. He's pretty exciting, but he'll get more chances. The consistency over the next sort of 5 matches for him are really important, just to keep that going. They want to see that ability to perform each week, but he's got all the qualities they're required, so yeah, he's definitely on the radar.
Z.
Mikey, Will Jordan has been an absolute revelation, certainly for me, and has looked good value in the last few in the games that we've seen him play. To bench him, I mean, look, we've got to believe Robertson. It was a tough decision. It would have been for any coach, anyone on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you take a look, Barry, at the quality operators in the back line, David Havili, Sevu Reece, and George Bridge, those are the run-on wings for the All Blacks. You take a look at Braden Eno, Jack Goodhue. Jack Goodhue's an All Black, Richie Mwanga 10. So they've got quality in that area. And so I'm not surprised with the fact that Scott Robertson has gone for the most experienced players, or the most experienced options for what is arguably his toughest game in the Super Rugby at Aotearoa.
Indeed. Now, in the other match, after notching their first win of the competition against the Waikato Chiefs last weekend, the Wellington Hurricanes will be looking to go back-to-back when they host the Otago Highlanders. But before we move on from Super Rugby at Aotearoa, guys, I must get your predictions for this big top-of-the-table clash. Is it the Blues or is it the Crusaders? Starting with you, Michael.
Crusaders by 10.
Chris?
I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that. I'm going to go... this is tough. I'm going to go Blues by 7.
Yo!
Wow. That is just a score in it. So we'll see how this one goes. And we will be able to let you know on Monday who the winner was.
Wait, did you give us your prediction?
No, I didn't, and it was deliberate.
You're not going to get away with it
because it's too close to call. Look, I think that these two sides, in truth, where one of these is going to be the winner ultimately. So I would say that in truth, I mean, of the competition outright, I would probably say that the Crusaders are going to walk away winners. They may even limp away winners because it'll be that close. I'm going to say the Crusaders by 3.
Super Rugby Aotearoa has not been the only rugby action in play. There's also Super Rugby AU, and there was one game played earlier today. The Melbourne Rebels and the Queensland Reds, they couldn't be separated even after extra time. 18-all it ended, meaning that the two teams share the spoils. Tomorrow, 3 years after being controversially dumped from Super Rugby, the Perth Western Force make a surreal return to the top flight against the team they thrashed in their final game before the axe fell. After a first round bye last weekend, they'll kick off against the New South Wales Waratahs, a team they hammered 40-11 in their final Super Rugby match in 2017. Let's see how they do this time round.
Hi, I'm JC Krill, Springbok and Blue Bulls backline player. You are listening to ZiFM Sports.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
Around the World in 60 is proudly brought to you by DSTV. We take off in the United States, where Tiger Woods has confirmed he will make his return to PGA Tour action next week at the Memorial Tournament. The 15-time major champion will headline a star-studded field at Murfield Village, an event he has won 5 times, having sat out of the first 5 PGA Tour events since golf's resumption from the coronavirus pandemic on the 11th of June. Woods has not played an official PGA Tour event since the Genesis Invitational in February, where he finished last out of those who made the cut, with the 44-year-old then skipping the Arnold Palmer Invitational and the Players due to a back injury. We head over to England, where Jason Holder says England's record test wicket taker James Anderson was the inspiration for him to add a more patient approach to his bowling armoury. The West Indies captain returned career best figures of 6 for 42 as his side rolled England over for 204 to take control on day 2 of the first test at Southampton yesterday. Recalling West Indies' previous tour of England in 2017, the all-rounder revealed that the example set by Anderson, who captured his 500th test wicket during that series, motivated him to adapt his own style. Touching down in Austria, where Lewis Hamilton says he's focused on both winning the World Championship and fighting racism this year. Formula One drivers stood against racism at the season-opening Austrian Grand Prix, in which Hamilton finished 4th. Hamilton said he had not decided whether to take the knee again at this weekend's Grand Prix at the same Red Bull Ring track, but he pointed out that there was not a specific time set aside for such a gesture this weekend, and that the build-up to the race did not provide much opportunity to do anything.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference. Z. The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudent. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
It's good to be having so much football to be talking about, and what a weekend it promises to be, with lots of action. But before we get there, the Premier League have sensationally admitted that 3 VAR calls made last night were incorrect, casting further doubt over the effectiveness of the controversial technology. Manchester United and Southampton were awarded contentious penalties during their top flight clashes, with Bruno Fernandes netting for the top 4 chasers, and James Ward-Prowse cracking his effort against the woodwork. And Tottenham boss Jose Mourinho was understandably left incensed after his side were denied a seemingly blatant spot kick when Bournemouth star Joshua King had bundled over Harry Kane. Now, Dean Smith, the manager of Aston Villa, has hit out at the disgraceful decision that led Manchester United to go ahead from the penalty spot at Villa Park, which ultimately culminated in a 3-0 loss for his side.
It unravelled with the first goal, I think. I thought we had made a really bright start of the game, put them under pressure, had some chances, Trezeguet hit the post. They're a quality team who were always going to be a threat on the counter because of the pace that they've got and the quality that they've got. But, it's all changed around on the penalty decision. I mean, I can understand John getting it wrong. He's on the pitch, but that goes to VAR. I don't know what they're looking at. It's a disgraceful decision, but can't really tell you what I think about it because I'll get fined. And it's a poor decision. We've got a screen over there that they can go and look at, but they don't seem to be bothered now.
Aston Villa in all sorts of trouble. I think Norwich are just on the cusp of relegation. Aston Villa seem to be following in that same direction, and not a surprise here that Dean Smith is absolutely furious, Chris, with that decision last night, because their fate lies in decisions, even small ones of that nature.
Definitely, every single point counts for Aston Villa at the moment. And if you take a look at that particular game last night, as soon as that penalty was awarded, when play resumed, you could see Aston Villa were a little bit of a different team. They, in terms of pace, in terms of how they were playing, there was a little bit of a switch. And that change in momentum obviously affected the rest of the game until we got to a 3-0 scoreline. So obviously in isolation, that one decision, even if it's one goal, even if they could have come back from that, the impact it makes on the momentum, on the morale of a team is just as important as well. And in as much as Dean Smith himself and his methods are questionable, in this particular scenario, I 100% feel for him.
Alois, Bruno Fernandes is the player at the heart of this. Now, he's a fantastic player. He's come in with goals and assists, but he's beginning to develop a bit of a reputation for cheating, because this is not the first time that he's done something similar. This time he gets away with the courtesy of VAR. We saw a similar simulation incident versus Tottenham Hotspur overturned. This one should have been overturned as well.
Yeah, I think for me it was not a penalty. Even when you look at the replay, I don't know. We have spoken about it. We talked about it last week about Real Madrid getting penalties. That's why VAR is there. So we start questioning the people that are manning those machines up there, because we could see it from the replays. But unfortunately, it was given. And sometimes when you're playing, Mike, football is that kind of honesty. It's exaggerated. It's exaggerated. When you are in those situations, you get touched, you fall, you go down, and some coaches actually tell us in the changing room that if you are touched, fall, go down.
Alois, I can understand. I can understand the player.
It's exaggerated.
No.
The referee to say it's not a penalty.
No, Alois, what we're talking about is you talk about a player going down, but let's take a look at that situation. That's not a question of you going down under impact or a defender has come over and there's been, sufficient contact for you to go down. Bruno Fernandes goes down and he's clutching at his shin. Why is he clutching at his shin?
Because you wanted a penalty.
So that's what I'm saying. That's simulation. That's not being clever. I can understand where a defender, puts his hand on you or pulls you back, and then you draw attention to the foul by maybe falling over and so forth. You can call that clever, but simulation is simulation, and I don't think simulation should be encouraged as clever.
No, that's why I'm saying, some of these things, it happens in the heat of the moment. You want to win, you're a footballer, you are in there, and you feel like you can win a penalty. I'm not saying that it's encouraged, but it's a reflex action that happens on the field. And that's why the referees are there. The referee is there to caution the player, make sure that he doesn't do it again. Give him a yellow card, give him a red card, because you are given that authority to stem it out. It's the same as Suarez stopping a World Cup, go pound shot with a hand. That's what footballers do. And the referee is there to make sure that the rules rules of the game are adhered to. Players handle, they dive for the ball when it's about to go into the net for a penalty. They stop the ball with the hand. They trip others when they are going for goal. It's all part of this game, and it's up to the referee to actually do justice to football and make sure that the rules are followed. I don't know. For me, we're different. I don't blame a footballer who tries to win a penalty for his club. I don't blame him. It's part of the game. Let the referee do his job and handle it. Suarez saved his penalty by stopping the ball on the goal line.
But that's a different example, though, Alois. So we're talking about a player who's trying to cheat. Handing the ball on your goal line is not defined as cheating. It's a handball and it is punished accordingly. But Barry, Alois has pointed to the fact that the referee is in place to then make the right call, and then not only do we have a referee in this situation, we also have VAR as well to correct the ref if the ref has made any mistakes. What made VAR yesterday to take the decision that they made? And this is not an isolated incident, because we've had a season which has been littered by controversial calls in the application of VAR by English match officials. And then last night alone, 3 penalty shouts in the 3 games that were played. VAR butchers all 3 penalty calls.
Yeah, I truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that VAR as a concept is being hampered, particularly in England, by the issue of clear and obvious error, on the basis that the fraternity, the brotherhood of referees, does not want to go against one another. So the referee's on-field call is always regarded as preeminent rather than what is right. What was right last night is that Bruno Fernandes went over and trod on the defender, okay? And the referee's call, on-field call, was a penalty. Was it a penalty? No, it wasn't. However, what they then did was they then go to the next level and they think to themselves, okay, what's at the top? At the apex is the issue of clear and obvious error. Now they have to dive into the referee's mind, mark you.
But wasn't that clear and obvious, Barry? You go back to what Dean Smith says, that he went over to the monitor, had one look at it, and he actually walked back thinking that they're going to be awarded a foul and it's going to be overturned because it was that obvious.
Yeah, and the issue is that they want to stick together. They want to have this ability to say that, the on-field referee is still tops. But if we have the technology, why are we then not using it? Because the technology showed clearly that Bruno Fernandes had trod on the defender. It was a free kick going the other way, not a penalty. But because the on-field referee had already made the call for a penalty, they decided, we have to go into the mind of the referee and look at his positioning and wonder and ask ourselves and think, how good could he have seen that Bruno Fernandes wasn't touched? Could he have seen that Bruno? No, he couldn't have.
Which is totally wrong, sir. Which is totally wrong. It is wrong to VAR to correct the referee's mistake, and then we want the referee's mistake to tally with the VAR. It's all wrong, totally. Totally.
Yeah, and Chris, are you encouraged by the fact that, okay, first of all, let me, before I move there, you have got former players who are now weighing in and saying, isn't it prudent now for the decision-making process around VAR to include former players who are able to also give perspective to what a player is trying to do? In that case, Bruno Fernandes tries to do a pirouette, which fails. He fails to control the ball.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Loses balance and falls over. Okay? So if you have a former player, he can easily explain to the referee, who's probably never played the game, to be honest, that, listen, this is what the player is trying to do. That's not a foul. That's a player who's lost balance. That should be a foul that's awarded the other way. And then the second thing, Chris, is that FIFA announcing last night, almost by coincidence, that they've decided to take full operational control of VAR. Those two directions that VAR is taking, or one proposed by the former players and the one that's drafted by FIFA, is that the right way that VAR should be moved?
Definitely. I think we need a lot more control. With FIFA taking control, definitely we need a sort of regularization of VAR, its purpose. Like we said, there's the human error element, and that is the problem with VAR. The fact that in as much as you have the actual video equipment, etc., you still have human beings, and that's where the errors are coming up, even when the footage is available. So I think that human error element and FIFA coming in to take control, that is going to assist VAR, and also gaining the trust of, for example, the players who at the moment are probably frustrated by VAR. In terms of getting former players, I think that's to actually take a look at some of these scenarios. I think that's a great move because, like you said, some of the referees have never played. They don't think the same way a player does. And to be able to have those different scenarios where someone is actually able to then interpret what is going on the field of play besides a referee, I think bodes well for VAR. And it's definitely time to get a bit more regularization and control over VAR, and to limit exactly how much human error is possible, even with VAR.
Okay, despite the controversy, there's no denying that United is a club on the up. That victory last night extended United's unbeaten run to 17 games in all competitions, and it moves them to within a point of fourth place Leicester in the race for Champions League qualifications. Villa, on the other hand, they are in trouble. 19th, 4 points from safety with just 4 games remaining to save their Premier League status. A recap of last night's results: Bournemouth in a goalless draw with Tottenham, Everton in a 1-1 draw with Southampton, and of course that thumping 3-0 victory for Manchester United in the Midlands. Your Premier League fixtures: Norwich will welcome West Ham to the East Coast, Watford versus Newcastle, Liverpool will entertain Burnley at Anfield, Sheffield United versus Chelsea, Brighton versus Manchester City, Wolves versus Everton, Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace, Bournemouth versus Leicester City, and the big game of the weekend is the North London derby, Tottenham versus Arsenal. Barry, how do you see this one panning out? Tottenham are under pressure. Jose Mourinho looks like he's beginning to sulk. Arsenal look like they've turned a corner. They'll have to pass this test again. They passed the Wolves test last weekend. This past week, they'll have to pass this one again, just as a sign of their progress.
And I see that progress continuing. I'll tell you why. Because I see a Tottenham side that's beginning to go into the Mourinho shell, as it were. If you notice, Tottenham Hotspur, regardless of the opposition, whether the opposition is above them, below them, or whatever, are playing a lot more of a defensive game. This is an Arsenal side also that's beginning to pass the ball a lot faster, move it around and shift teams around. And I suspect that this is going to be an exciting one to watch because, again, it's the old adage, immovable force in Arsenal, irresistible object Tottenham, and I foresee the irresistible force prevailing.
It's the North London derby, and what's at stake? Europa football. Yes, you heard me correct. Not the Champions League, but Europa football.
Over to Italy now, where Juventus boss Maurizio Sarri did not feel like brooding over this week's embarrassing meltdown at AC Milan, but tried instead to quickly switch the squad's focus on tomorrow's tough Serie A match against high-flying, free-scoring Atalanta. Gianpiero Gasparini's Atalanta will be confident of securing their 10th victory on the bounce as they travel to Turin. La Dea have been in spellbinding form either side of the restart, with Gasparini's unorthodox system often overwhelming opponents, and they leapfrogged Inter to move into third following their most recent victory over Sampdoria on Wednesday night. Atalanta, it's almost as if, yes, they are the new kid on the block in terms of qualifying for Champions League, Alois, but it's the team that has learned very quickly and under the astute tutelage of Gianpiero Gasparini on how to finish the season, and they're finishing absolutely strong in Serie A.
Yeah, they're doing well. You see, that we can only hope that this was the team that was supposed to be chasing Juventus at the time, like at the beginning of the season, because now they're giving us a fantastic finish. They were going to do that, and hopefully they're going to do that. They're going to give Juve a tough time because, like you said, they know how to finish a season. This is actually fantastic, exciting. It's a team that we never expected to be in this top form and this consistency. We were all lyrical about Lazio. And all of a sudden, the lights open. It's actually Atlanta that we don't be noticing, doing their jobs quietly and silently. And all of a sudden, they're there. They're now on the log and they're playing Juve. The win against Juve will actually underline their strength and their resolve and what they are and who they are. And they're definitely a big side. And even the teams that are going to be playing them in the Champions League, they are going to be very, very scared of Atlanta.
It was a Herculean effort, Mike, for AC Milan to prevail and win against Juve. They had a phenomenal second half and deserved winners ultimately. Does Atlanta have enough in the tank to overpower the old lady?
Yeah, one thing they do have, Barry, is goals. There are only 3 sides in Europe that have scored over 100 goals in all competitions this season. Bayern Munich, Manchester City, the other side is Atalanta. So they know how to score goals. They know how to find their way to goal. They're the top scoring side in Serie A. They are. You never keep them out. So, and that is the key for Juventus. If Juventus can defend well versus Atalanta, then they are likely to win the game, because Atalanta also concede quite a few goals the other end. So Atlanta's tactics are really based on outscoring the opposition. So if Juventus allow Atalanta to get out of the blocks quickly, they've got some very decent players. You know, Josip Ililic is a very decent operator. Martin Darun as well. Those are guys with experience. Remember, Martin Darun was played for Middlesbrough as well, so he's got a bit of Premiership experience. He is a toughening up period in England, and he's found his feet in Serie A. So really good players who can exploit Juventus if Juventus sleep like they did against AC Milan.
This should be an exciting matchup, certainly this weekend. A recap of last night's result. Spal upended at home 3-0 by Udinese. And then Hellas Verona and Internazionale played out an exciting 2-2 draw. Hellas Verona equalizing towards the end of that one. Your weekend fixtures in Serie A: Lazio versus Sassuolo. Brescia will entertain Roma, while Spal will travel to Genoa. Cagliari versus Lecce. Fiorentina versus Hellas Verona. It's Parma who entertain Bologna. Udinese versus Sampdoria. Napoli will take on AC Milan in a potentially exciting encounter, and then Juventus versus Atalanta. Eyes will be trained on Italy.
We finish off in the Liga, where Real Madrid host Alaves tonight, looking to make it 8 La Liga wins on the spin and take one step closer to a 34th Spanish title. Victory over the struggling Basques would see the leaders restore their 4-point advantage over second-place Barcelona, with just 3 more games to go after this one. Alice, if you take a look at this one, Alaves is, flirting with relegation. Real Madrid hasn't lost to Alaves in over 20 years. This looks like a routine win, and Real Madrid, it would be a little bit crazy if Real Madrid were to trip up on this one.
No, they can't trip. They can't trip at this moment, especially when they're playing a team that hasn't beaten them in over 20 years. I'm sure they're going to win, and they maintain that. I can see the championship right there in front of Real Madrid. It's only for them to lose it. It's theirs already. They're holding on to it, and they just have to hold on to what they have now, and I see them winning it. It's when they win now, if they beat Alaves, now it's 3 matches to go, and I don't see them losing this one. Honestly speaking, it's for them to lose it, but I don't see them losing it.
A recap of last night's results: Aiba drawing 0-0 against Leganes, Mallorca 2-0 against Levante, Athletic Club going down 2-1 against Sevilla. Your weekend fixtures in La Liga: Real Sociedad versus Granada, Osasuna versus Celta Vigo, Real Valladolid versus Barcelona, Atletico Madrid will be up against Real Betis, Espanyol versus struggling Aiba, Levante versus Athletic Club, Leganes versus Valencia, Sevilla versus Mallorca, and Real Madrid almost there versus Alaves.
We'll be back on Monday for Manic Monday. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend, Zimbabwe. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manande, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.